Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Access Management Troubleshooting sessions. First, I would like to take a brief moment to introduce ourselves. João, would you like to start?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. From my side, I'm João. I work at the European Medicines Agency since 3 months ago, and I am a portfolio lead supporting the DADI project on various matters.
Thank you. And my name is Arturo. I am Platform Manager at the DADI project at the European Medicines Agency. So, as Cristina mentioned, this meeting is being recorded. Only share your camera if you're comfortable doing so, and it will be available later on for your own reference. Additionally, the slides are being shared with you in the chat. I will put them one more time just in case they are not available. Oh, sorry, I didn't do it properly. Copy link. Yes, so if you want, you can already download them and have them with you if that helps you. Okay, so this presentation will take roughly an hour. So hopefully we have enough time at the end of the session for answering all the different questions that we have. But of course, if you do have in the meantime any question or if something is not clear, feel free to raise your hand and we can make an interactive session. That is also perfectly fine. So the way we have structured the agenda is that we will start by defining the goal of the troubleshooting session, followed by an explanation of the different roles that participate in the UAT. Yes, this will hopefully leave us, like I just mentioned, with enough room for answering all the questions. And at the end of the day, we will be able to at least have a clear path on how to gain access. Very good. So let's start with the goals. So why are we here? The ultimate goal of the session is that before the beginning of the UAT, all the access has been already gained so that we can start testing from day one without having any access management related issues. And in order to accomplish this, we have already published the user guide for registration, which is also available in the link I mentioned in the chat. And on top of that, we have also scheduled 2 troubleshooting sessions, this one being the first one, and we have another one in August next month with the exact same content. So if this one gives you enough clarity, there is no reason in principle to join the next one. So moving on to the different profiles that will take part in the UAT, we have 3 different roles. First, we have the administrators. So as an administrator, your role is to approve or reject the access to the portal. So in the context of the UAT, it will be the EAF portal in UAT, but it's a bit broader than that, and we will get into the details later. Hopefully, at the end of the session, if you already have a proof of authority, you will already be able to approve access management roles. And if you don't know what a proof of authority is, that's perfectly fine. We will explain it in this session, and hopefully by the end of it, you have a clear path on what to do. Then we have the testers. As a tester, you will adopt the role of an applicant in the EAF portal. This role is the only one actually accessing the portal. So if you're a tester, at the end of the session, the end goal for you is to be able to access the EAF portal. And maybe to even list the organizations you've been allowed access to. And finally, we have the test coordinators. Test coordinators receive the feedback from the testers, consolidate it, which means structuring it in a specific format, ensuring that we don't have duplicates, and entering it into Azure DevOps, which is our bug reporting tool. So this is the high-level overview. And to recap, just one more time, administrators manage the access, testers actually enter and log in and test the EAF portal, and test coordinators are the one actually reporting the bugs to Azure DevOps, which is our tool for issue management. So as you can see, each role is independent, and it is a perfectly valid scenario to have multiple roles. It's something perfectly normal to be an administrator and a tester and even a test coordinator. You can have 1, 2, or 3 different profiles. Any combination is possible, and the roles are again completely independent. Very good. In this little diagram, we are expanding a bit more on what kind of administrators and testers we have, and also I'll briefly explain the sequence on the UAT. So as you can see in the administrator column, we have 2 different role types. We have an organization administrator and also an IRIS and EAF industry user admin. I will go into the details in the administrator section, but for now, it's just worth mentioning that there are 2 roles. And in the testers, we have 3 different role types. The contributor being the one with the least amount of privileges, and the coordinator the one with the most amount of privileges. So that is the security model. Again, João will have a presentation in this block, and will explain more details later in this session. So in a sequential order, so first, an EMA administrator will be the one approving the access of the first administrators. Once that is approved, subsequent administrator can allow access to colleagues in the same organization. So if you are an industry user admin, you can allow other administrator, you can actually manage the approval of other administrator. But most importantly, or equally importantly, you are the one approving the access to the EAF applicants. So once you have gained the role of an industry administrator, you will start receiving access requests of both other industry admins and EAF applicants. Moving on to the testers, as briefly mentioned, first you would have to request access, and once the administrator has approved your access for a given organization, you will be able to log into the EAF portal. All the feedback should be reported to the test coordinator that has been appointed by your trade association. Now, moving on to the test coordinator column, the test coordinator will gather all this feedback, consolidating, putting it in the right structure, and making sure that we don't have a bug reported duplicates. And more information, of course, will follow on that, and logging it into the Azure DevOps. That is a bit the overview of the roles. Yes, okay. So now we have established a bit the overview of the roles. I would like to move on to the administrators block. Again, one more time, as an administrator, your main role is to approve access management. So administrators are approvers. They manage the approval of access requests. For the purpose of this UAT, you can request 2 different kinds. IRIS and EAF industry user admin is a role that will allow you to grant access to both IRIS and EAF applications. External organization administrator is also an option, but is a much broader administrator level. It will not only give you access to IRIS and EAF, but to all the applications in the ecosystem of the EMA. So for the purpose of this UAT, we strongly recommend to take the IRIS and EAF user admin, as this one will give you sufficient access level. As mentioned before, administrator can approve other administrators. So once your organization has one administrator, subsequent one can be done autonomously without the intervention of the EMA. Both administrator and applicant roles are per organization. So if your company has multiple organizations, and you wish to test in multiple of them, you will have to to request access to each individual organization. Now, please note that this is a production role, which means that administrators not only will give you access to the EAF portal in UAT, but once we go live, you will also be able to grant access to production. And as mentioned before, IRIS is also part of this administrator role, so you will be able to grant access to IRIS in production at the moment. So please bear that in mind. And the last thing that is worth mentioning is that as an administrator, you do not have directly access to the EAF portal. However, you can request access and approve it yourself. We will demonstrate this in a minute if there are some questions in this regard. Okay, so what do you need to be an administrator? The first thing that you need is to have an EMA account. This is a very simple process that we are going to demonstrate very soon. And in fact, this is a requirement for all the different roles that are mentioned in this presentation, including testers and test coordinators. Then you will need a signed proof of authority, and that is signed by your company. And this document authorizes you or even can authorize you to multiple organizations for a given user. You will then have to submit individually all the requests. However, you can attach the same proof of authority. Once the first administrator is approved, subsequent ones can be done directly by you. So if you need more information, we did, as mentioned before, have a user guide for registration, and especially interesting are the links that are in bold, being the managed user access for your organization as a user admin, the one that is specifically diving into the details of the user admin role. And this brings us to the demonstration. The first thing that I would like to do is to create an account at the EMA. So for that, we are going to go to register.ema.europa.eu. And here you can have an explanation on how to create an account, but we can go straight and create it directly. So once we click on sign in, there is a next link for creating an account, and it is a very straightforward process. We are going to write first name, last name, an email, and passwords, and that should pretty much be it. Okay. Yes, there you go. So if I now go to my email, I should soon receive an verification token. This is again a very standard procedure, and here we can find the one-time registration. So let me go ahead and put it in the token, and it's very important to store the username. Once the registration is completed, you will receive an email containing this username, but this is your handle and your access to the system. So please store it somewhere, otherwise you will have it available. While this is being created, what I would like to demonstrate is an account that I have already created. And let me check which one was it, test_A. Yes, so if I go ahead and sign in, very good. So this account already exists while this one is being created. And in the meantime, I would like to show how you can see the access that you already have. So if you go, this is the landing page, the dashboard, and the functionality that we are going to cover today is manage my access, track my request, and edit identity. So if we go ahead and click on edit identity, there is a tab called access. And here you will see the list of access that you currently have for this account. So as you can see, for this particular user, we are administrators, EAF administrators of organization UAT Org 1 and administrators of UAT Org 4. Additionally, we are also EAF applicant coordinators for UAT Org 4. So as you can see, you can be administrator of multiple organizations, and the access to the portal is independent and is this row here, and you can have multiple rows. Is this one created? Yes. So the access has already been created. So what I would like to do is to First go to the email and see if we received indeed. So we have already received the registration. It has already been completed. So we can go ahead and log in. Let me see. Very good. So this is it. This is all you need in order to create an EMA account, and this will be a requirement for all the rows of this presentation. The next thing that we're going to do is to go ahead and request the access of an administrator access into the EAF portal. So for that, we click on Manage My Access, and we would like to list all the different EAF roles that we have. So we can go ahead in the search bar and look for the different EAF roles that there are. So as you can see, there's 3 applicant role types and 1 industry user admin role type. This is the one that we are going to select. We do that by clicking on the tick box. The next thing, and this is a very important step, otherwise you will get automatically rejected, we need to attach the proof of authority, which I have one here. Very good. So once it has been uploaded, we can just go ahead and submit. The next step will be to provide the organization ID. Since we saw that in the other test account, we are administrators of organization 1 and organization 4, we are going to go ahead and request access to organization 1. And we can submit the request. So first we need to search it, and then in the next bar, I went a bit too fast, so let me just request another access. EAF. So yes, so we have already submitted an industry user admin, and we can have multiple requests. What I'm going to do now is to request an applicant contributor one. For this one, you do not need approval authority, and it will be sent to all the administrators. So yes, I'm going ahead and requesting an applicant contributor role. This one does not need approval authority, but you do need to provide the organization ID. So again, we first have to search for the UAT org 1. Then in the next one, in the dropdown, your organization should appear. So once you submit the request, you are going to send it to all the administrators for that organization. And you can see what are the active requests by clicking on Track My Request. So you can see that you have 2 pending requests that have not yet been approved. Now, if we go to the other, yes, it's here. So we have in these additional accounts. Yes, so as we mentioned before, this is the one that I created before this presentation. And as you can see, we are already administrators. So you can see in the block of the pending approvals in the homepage that there are 2 requests for a given user. So if we expand on them, you can see that the user we just created has requested access not only to the applications, which would be the EAF applicant contributor, but also to be an administrator. If you want to grant access, you should click on the proof of authority, ensure that this person is actually authorized to be an administrator in your organization, and then you can go ahead and approve it. Same thing. If you want to provide access or approve access to the application, you go ahead and approve it or deny it. After a few minutes, in fact, this can take up to 45 minutes. Roughly, it should take typically less than 30, but depending on multiple factors, it can take up to 45 minutes. And once that is done, in the let me just move this one away. So once 45 minutes have happened, you should the user we just created should become an administrator, and at the same time have access to the organization we have requested. The way of checking whether you already your access has been approved or not is via email. You do receive the email whether you have been approved or rejected. You can click on Track My Request and check the current state. And like we mentioned before, when you click on Edit Identity, if you go to Access, you could see here, it could be that is pending or that is assigned. Since we have already approved, the processing has been started and it's assigned. Bear in mind that being assigned doesn't mean that you already have access directly. Again, it can take up to 45 minutes until the access is completely granted to the EAF portal. And more details will follow by my colleague Joao in a minute. Going back to the presentation, let me see. Yes, so we have just demonstrated how to create an EMA account, how to request an administrator role. You need to attach the proof of authority. And once this role has been approved, you will be able to manage access. This is everything I wanted to mention for the administrator role. Now I would like to hand over to my colleague Joao. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Arturo. I will take over and share my screen. Up until now, Arturo has explained the administrator-related roles. So in concrete, for the ones among you who will be approving or denying access role requests, I will now focus on the applicant-related roles. So in the end, the roles that will grant you access to the EAF portal. The idea of these roles is that it will allow you again to access the EAF portal and also will allow you to be a tester in the UAT phase, which will take place from the 5th to the 16th of September. We have three different applicant-related roles: the EAF applicant contributor, EAF applicant manager, and the EAF applicant coordinator roles. These roles allow you to perform different operations when it comes to creating, accessing, editing, or managing an electronic application form. We will go through the different operations in the next slide. Before we move there, I'd like to make some remarks. We should have, per each user, or for the users who will be testers or in the end applicants, only one of these roles per each organization that you belong to. So this is to say that one should not refer to him or herself as, let's say, applicant manager of product A and applicant coordinator of product B. No, roles are granted at organization level. So if you have one role for a given organization, let's say that role applies to the whole products of that organization. Nevertheless, you can have as many roles as you wish according to the number of organizations that you belong to or you act on behalf of. And moving on to the next slide. So in this slide, we can see the operations that you can do per each role. So as you can see, the applicant coordinator one has the least set of privileges in the EAF portal. So for the users with this role, they will be able to be added as a co-author of an application form, edit some fields of the application and set classifications. And these three roles, they work in a way that the subsequent role inherits the grants of the previous one plus something else. So if we move to the applicant manager role, you can see you have the same grants or privileges of the contributor role, plus the ability to select products, to create, finalize, and if needed, deleting your own application form. And also you will be able to add co-authors. And then the coordinator role, the applicant coordinator role, again inherits the permissions of the applicant manager profile, plus the ability to fully access all application forms that have been created for that organization. One more remark here. These are the names that you will find in the EMA account management portal. So to request it, these ones are for specifically being able to participate in the UAT. Later on, when we go live in October, you will need to repeat this process and request the applicant roles. The names are exactly the same except these initial 4 letters, UAT underscore. So this works differently than the administrator-related roles, while the ones that Arturo explained, they apply both for the production and the UAT environments. The applicant-related roles, they are, let's say, different for the UAT and then for production. In terms of the prerequisites, so some of them already explained by Arturo. In order to be an applicant or a tester, and ultimately to access the EAF portal, you will need an active EMA user account using the email from your company, an external email address, and then having assigned to that account an EAF applicant role. You can find in these slides several links. Maybe you already have an EMA account, so you may only be interested in reactivating that account or recovering your credentials, retrieving your username, resetting password, or creating an EMA account from scratch, which Arturo already showcased the step-by-steps. We also have a link for how to request a user access role. I will showcase it later on. Here you find the step-by-step guide. One additional note is that your organization or the organization on behalf you will be acting must be listed in the EMA's organization management service. This is because one of the first steps of creating the electronic application form relates to the selection of the market authorization holder, and that is basically reading all the organizations from OMS. So please also make sure, if not done yet, that your organization is already listed in this database. All right, so moving to the next step now is the demo part. All right, so I will go then to the EMA account management portal. This is the one, so it's basically the register.ema.europa.eu. This is the website or the portal that you see. Again, here you see most of the links that are in the slide that I just presented related to the creation or management of the EMA account. I will skip now this step. Arturo already demoed this part.
Sorry to interrupt, Joao, but
Yes.
I'm not sure if it's me, but I see your screen in gray. Maybe it's just me. Yes.
Okay, that's...
No, I have the same. It's gray. Yeah.
Okay, I will stop sharing and sharing back. Not sure what happened. Do you see it now?
Yes, now you can see it. Thank
All
you.
right, thanks a lot. So as I was saying, the first step would be to go to register.ema.europa.eu, and the user interface, as you see it here, most of this relates to the creation or management of the EMA user account. We'll skip these steps as Arturo already demonstrated. I will go directly to the sign in. Okay, this is doing the automatic sign-in. I would not want that, so I come here and we'll repeat it again. All right, so this is what I wanted to achieve. Let's just go back and show you. So if I click sign in, I should use here the username that I got from the account creation and the respective password. I can also create the account here as demonstrated by Arturo. So if I log in, I go into the EMA account management portal, and then to request the role, I would need to go to manage my access. So the first step would be to select which role I want to apply. So if we are now discussing the applicant related roles, we will select one of them. We have two options actually. We can use the search box to narrow down the available roles, or I can also use the filter button. Would recommend it to use here the search box and either write EAF or UAT. Right, so we have the same four different roles here. The ones that are now of interest are these three: applicant, contributor, coordinator, and manager. Let's say that I want to be an applicant coordinator, so I will tick box this one until it's green, click on next, and I go to the step number 2, review and submit. So here we have a summary of the selected roles. As I only selected one, we only see one. We, in the applicant related roles, we don't need to attach any proof of authority, so we can go directly to the next step, which is to submit. And then I will get hopefully a pop-up, yes, saying that some more information is needed. And in order to do that, I click on complete form. And this is the step where I identify for which organization I am requesting this role. So if we scroll down, we have here the search organization. That would be the first step. So I will just type org3, this fake organization that we created for purpose of this training, among others, yes. So yeah, this narrows down the list of available organizations according to the search I did. So I will select now UAT org3 and submit the request. Then I get this information here. And at this point in time, the administrator of the organization that you just selected, he or she would get a notification informing that a given user has requested this role. Please go to the portal and approve or deny. So that step already also showed by Arturo. And once this request is, let's say, approved, we should still need around 45 minutes to allow the synchronization between the EMA account management portal and the EAF portal. And after that time, we can then show, and I will show it quickly. I will just open a new one so that you see. Then you should go and test actually that your access is working well. So if you then go to the EAF portal URL, in this case in the UAT, this is the look and feel of the page. You can then sign in on this button here, or then on the top right corner. Right, now the button is selectable. So if I do sign in, all right, again, is signing me in because I have already, I'm in the EMA VPN. so it reads directly my Windows credentials. Something that I wanted to mention here is that the sign-in works in as a multi-factor authentication. So first you will need to log in with your username and password. And the next step would be that you either use the Microsoft Authentication app, where at the moment of your sign-in, you receive a pop-up on your mobile phone saying, please verify your authentication, that someone is actually trying to access with your credentials, for which you should approve. Or you can also select as the second factor authentication an SMS code, so that you at any time you try to sign in, you receive a SMS code, and then you insert that code in the portal. At this moment, I'm already logged in to the Eaf portal. Just wanted to briefly show you why it's important that you have the applicant role for a given organization, because one of the first steps of the application form is then to select the market authorization holder, as you see here, and the list that you will see here relates to the exact roles that have been approved to your user account. In this case, I am an EMA user admin, so I can see all industries, but this list should be very strict in your cases according to the organizations that you act, or that you have a role associated with. All right, so this is what I wanted to show you. So I will bring back the presentation. Hopefully you see it. Yes, good. So as a recap, to request an applicant-related role, we go to the EMA account management, we sign in, click on Manage My Access, we use the filter bar to select the role we want. We have a review of what we want to submit, click on Submit, and then we identify which organization we want to do the request of this role using the search organization and then selecting it. And then again, the need of 45 minutes from the moment your administrator approves your request. And then the test of the role, so accessing directly the EAF portal, and the need for the multi-factor authentication. Some more information here to mention that your sign in should be not your external email, but as we have this information here and then here as well, you should use your username. So the username that you that was created upon the EMA account creation, plus this part here at id.ema.europa.eu. The password being the same as you use at register.ema.europa.eu. And again, the second authentication step would be to use either the authentication app or this SMS code. A view on the EF portal once you are logged in. And that would be it. I would now hand over back to Arturo for the explanation of the test coordinator's role.
Thank you. Am I sharing my screen? Yes, I think now it should be working.
Yes.
Very good. All right. So this brings us to the end of the presentation. This is the last block. And we would like to briefly go through the test coordinator role. So the role of a test coordinator, as mentioned before, is to gather the feedback, collect the feedback from the testers, structure it in a format that we will briefly introduce now, but present more in detail in the session kickoff, which will be the first day of the UAT, the 5th of September. And we will just go through the Azure DevOps system and check how to report a bug and how to look at the currently reported bugs. Again, the role is to collect it, structure it, ensuring that there are no duplicates, and put it into the system. In order to be a trade association, you need to have been already appointed by your trade association. A requirement that you do need is to have an active EMA user account. And that is exactly the same simple process that was showcased before. You first name, last name, email and password. And this username is the one that we will use to log in into Azure DevOps, just like Joao mentioned before. This is a process that is handled directly. There is no automation, since the amount of test coordinator is at the moment, I believe, around 20. And if you have not yet been invited to Azure DevOps, if after a couple of days of creating the EMA user account, you still don't have access to it, please contact the EAF testing email so that we can look into it. And this is everything I wanted to mention. I think I will just go ahead and go to the demo. Okay, yes. So if I come here and go to the website of Azure Dev, which is EU EMA Dev, as mentioned before, the way of signing in is with the username created in the account management portal. It's also mentioned here. For this, we have test_t8@id.ema.europa.eu. Yes, now I need to approve the access, which I'm doing with my phone, with the Authenticator app. Yes. And this signing process is single sign-on, so for accessing the EAF portal, it will be exactly the same procedure, if you have an EAF applicant role, of course. So this is the project that you should have access if you're a test coordinator. And I will not go into all the details. We will cover it a bit more during the kickoff. But what I want to mention is two things mainly. First, in the left-hand side, we have the board section. What is especially interesting is the backlog. The backlog are issues that have been already reported, not only by you, but by all the test coordinators. So when you want to report a new bug, the very first thing that you should do is come to this list, check if there is a bug that already resonates and it sounds similar to what you want to report. And if that is the case, you could open it. And maybe if that is the case, you can add additional information in the discussion block. So just to showcase it, this is a comment. The way of saving it would be in the right-hand side. Here, save and close. This will effectively put the comment. So assuming that the bug that you want to report is not there, what you can do is you can go to this plus button and create a new issue. And there's two fields that are mandatory. The first one being the title. This is an issue or another issue. Please, this is just a title. Please be more descriptive in a real case scenario. And the description. And I think I have somewhere the template. Yes. Let me copy it. So the description should follow this template, which is steps to reproduce, which is a list of actions that the development team should do in order to get to the inconsistent state that you want to show. So you need to click on here or open a new application and add in a co-author, and I expect to see my colleague, but it's not there. Then you here see I should see a colleague, but the actual result is that an error is displayed. So with this format, it's quite clear for the developer how to get to the same state as you. And of course, screenshots are more than welcome, and they help a lot adding additional information. So the way of adding them would be by just selecting them. Do I have an image? Yes, a bug. So like this, you can add screenshots. So go ahead. If you're a test coordinator, please create a test bug. Make sure that you have access to the application, you have right access to the application. And yes, so this is the bug that I have just done. Go ahead. If you have created it already, you can then go to state and remove it as a reporting error. This way it will disappear from the list, as you can see, and you have checked that you have the right access and you can report bugs. And this will ensure that we have a smooth beta, a smooth UAT in the beginning of September. Okay, so we have seen the backlog, we have seen how to report bugs. A few things that I'm going to very briefly mention is the dashboards. Here you can see the visualization, the bugs that are currently reported, open issues, and so on. This might help you with some visuals of what is the current state of the beta UAT. And in the currently the wiki is also enabled, but it's empty at the moment. So there will be more information in the kickoff, but here you will have also relevant links and additional information. And I think that's everything I wanted to mention. Let me go back to the presentation. Okay, I will go to the end, possible. Yes, test coordinators. Okay, so as mentioned, the way of creating a new issue is with this plus button. The format that we prefer is the steps to reproduce format, and the two fields that are mandatory are the title and the description. And it is possible and recommended to attach screenshots. And the way of checking the bugs that have already been reported is through the backlog option. You can use the filter functionality, but we will not cover it in today's session. And as I mentioned before, there's additional functionality that is enabled, like the dashboard and the wiki. Which brings us to the last slide of the presentation. Hopefully by now you have a clear understanding on the three different roles. So now the next steps are, if you don't have already an account, please do so. Request the roles that you wish to have, either administrator or applicant managers. And once they have approved, you should now be able to validate that you have the access you expect before the UAT, which is, as a tester, you should be able to access the Eafs portal, as an administrator to approve or manage access requests, and as a test coordinator, please create a test bug and then mark it as removed as a reporting error, just in case the right permissions are not properly propagated. If you need additional information, as also covered in this session, we have the guide for registration. This is a more extensive document where we explain more in detail what was discussed here. And if you have an EAF applicant account, you can also use the forum to ask each other questions and provide suggestions, and in general have a forum, a discussion. You do need an EAF applicant account in order to use it. And of course, you can send us questions. We have enabled this email for all the different questions that you may have. And as also mentioned, this is the first of two troubleshooting sessions. There will be one that will have the exact same content. But if you still have troubles in the 23rd of August, we will repeat this session. And this brings us to the end of the presentation. If you don't have any other comments, Raul, I would like to start answering all the questions, which I see that there's already a number of them, and I will stop sharing my screen. Let me see. Okay. Well, I'm not sure how to cancel it, but that's okay. We can start with the different questions. So if I open the chat,
There were already two questions that I answered in written. Maybe I can just summarize them. So the first one was about whether an organization would need more than one user administrator. It's not a need, but it's recommended, yes, to cover potential annual leave, sick leave, that we have more than one user administrator per organization. And there is no limit on the number of admin users per organization. It's a matter of self-organization, let's say. And the second one I also replied was whether for the second, or let's say for the subsequent user admins, those would need to, or what those would require the proof of authority. That's yes, all the requests for user administrators need to attach the POA in the access request. Arturo, do you want me to go through the other questions, or?
yes, that's
Yep.
that's perfect.
Okay. Okay, so one more question from Irena. Does it mean that the applicant manager has only access to EAFs that were created by himself? Correct, yes. So applicant manager role allows to create and manage, finalize only the applications that were created by him or herself. If you want to have access to the whole set of application forms that were created within an organization, you would need the next role, which is the applicant coordinator.
Maybe I can add there that, of course, you can be invited to another application created by a colleague. So if you're invited to partake in another application form created by your colleague, even if your access rights are as an applicant manager, you can, of course, see that application that you have been invited to participate in.
All right, and then we have a question from Christoph. Is this correct understanding of access tree? One account means multiple organizations possible per account. Possible. Multiple roles per individual organization can be assigned.
Would you like me to take this one?
Yeah, that's fine. I was about to ask if Christoph would want to give some more background, but please do.
So for a given organization, you can have, for instance, an administrator role and one of the three access level. You can either be a contributor, a coordinator, or a manager, but it does not. You should not request for organization one, let's say, a contributor and a manager role, as they are incremental. If you take the highest one, the coordinator, that will already give you access to the lowest one. So for one given organization, if you are referring to the EAF applicant role, one of the three is what you should select. But you can have, and it is again a very normal scenario, to have different access levels in different organizations. So you can be an applicant manager in organization one and an applicant contributor in an organization number two. But only one applicant role per organization is expected. In addition to that, you can be administrator, which is independent.
Thank you. That was precisely what I asked about. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Then we have a question from Elizabeth. Is there a special reason why these roles for the DADI UAT run under the IRIS roles? So this question, I believe, relates to the administrator-related roles. The special reason is because the administrator roles are shared with IRIS and EAF. So if you are already an administrator for IRIS from previous experience in the past, you will be automatically be an administrator for the EAF. So the reason is that, yeah, we share the administration for both applications. Okay, moving on. A question from Irena. If there are more administrators in one organization, will requests for access roles be distributed to all of them in parallel? No, no distribution is done, so all the administrators will see all the access requests, and then is a matter of organization or who sees it first. Yeah, that part is flexible. Next question from Ines. The UAT EAF coordinator should be the same as the administrator coordinator that we have now for our EMA account in the company. Here
Maybe,
there is.
yes, I think administrators are an independent role. So if you are an administrator, you handle access, but it's an independent role to the EAF coordinator. Again, you can be even contributor for your organization or not have any role at all and being the administrator of it. They are independent and they serve very different purposes. So as in they should, that depends on your use case. My recommendation is that we to test the different access levels as well. But again, we will cover that later on. So you can even create multiple accounts with different access levels so that you can validate that the access are what you expect.
Right. So we have a problem from Elizabeth. So the org ID for our market authorization holder was changed in the meanwhile in OMS. Therefore, our current Iris EF role admin cannot give me access because her role is associated to the former org ID. Does she have to apply for the now current new org ID? What about all the other users associated to the former org ID? Yes, indeed. If there was an update of the org ID, all the requests would need to be requested again. There is no transition. Arturo, Christina, is my understanding right? I believe.
Arturo, do you know? But that's actually a very good question, and I think we definitely need to look into it more, and also what happens to an application, because this scenario could potentially happen in the middle of a of a procedure, or maybe perhaps your variation is to change the organization, some of the organization details. So what happens? Will you still keep the access, or how can you obtain access to that form? So I think it's a very good question, definitely worth of testing. But Arturo, maybe you are more aware how, when a change like this happens, what happens to
Yes, this is a very good question, as is so the products are associated to organizations and more precisely to locations. Now, if a product has changed its location, logically, but we would have to validate, you need to have access to the new location, unless in PMS the product is still mentioned in the old organization. So the EAF portal reads the products from the PMS. So wherever your product is listed, you should have access to that organization. And if you have any additional remark, please feel free to send us an email, as this is an interesting scenario.
Indeed. All right, let's move on to the next question. What is the definition of reference MAH? is there an OMS document mentioning this definition? If so, which document? So yeah, the market authorization holder is the organization on behalf you will be submitting an application form. That organization should be in the OMS, so should be listed there. Is there a document? We have the link in the presentation of OMS where you can check the website. I hope that will be helpful. I'm not sure if it is mentioned MAH in the OMS. Need to double check. We can maybe take the question as well.
Yeah, and I think there are also kind of sometimes different terms are used in different contexts. So of course, also in the context of a work sharing variation, you have a reference marketing authorization holder, which is the one who is responsible for submitting that application. So there we have reference in the CMDH document, which I've linked here in the Q&A. But in a different context with regards to OMS, there may be a different explanation. So sometimes these terms are used slightly, the same term is used in a different context.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. A question from Frederica. What if my UAT EAF applicant role is approved, but I cannot access the EAF portal? So in principle, you should access. There is this sync period of around 45 minutes. You need to wait between the moment the role is approved and the moment you can access the EAF portal. If for any reason this does not happen, I would suggest that you contact us and we see your specific case. It should not happen. I don't know if this is a real case scenario, Frederica, but in any case, if you have any issue, you can contact us. All right, then we have a question. Is registration on the portal open now? Registration on the portal. So the access to the portal is encouraged. So you can already create your EMA account. You can already request your access. In the end, you will be able to access the portal as soon as the request is approved. However, you should, let's say, wait for the final version of the portal to be ready. So that is aimed for September, so when the UAT starts. However, let's say you will be able to access and see it. You may find already some bugs, but they are not, let's say, to be yet reported because we are still in the process of finalizing the portal. Alessio asks, hi, can you leave a template that you want as an example?
I think this relates to the template, how to report the issues in ADO. So Arturo showed a template on what should be provided when comments are raised. So we can, of course, include that into a presentation and we can have a little package of those details sent specifically to the coordinator so you know exactly what the expectation is.
Absolutely, and we will use the wiki of the Azure DevOps. That is where we will complete information. So yes, in the beginning of the UAT, the 5th of September, we will provide all the information.
Yeah. In any case, the template, just to complement, as Arturo mentioned, the two mandatory fields would be to have a title, relevant title, and then a description. Within the description, what we ask is to be as detailed as possible so that we understand what is the difficulty that you are facing and how to reproduce it so that we then are able to fix it. Screenshots are encouraged, the step-by-steps as well. All right, following to the next question. Is this a pure testing environment? Could we, for example, use former data from real PDF variation application forms? Yes, this is a testing environment. If you want to use data from previous variation application forms, I would say yes, but it's not possible to import it. So of course you can copy the data there, but you would need to go through the steps of the electronic application form to complete it.
Indeed, but that's actually encouraged. So ideal test scenario would be to fill in the forms in the web portal exactly like you would have done in the PDF application form. So that is a ideal best test scenario, and the more complicated your variation was, the better the test scenario. As in, is it pure test environment? Yes. As Joao mentioned, it's not fully ready yet. So we're still doing development. We have identified bugs. Those bugs are not at the moment visible in the ADO where the contributors would access. We have a separate kind of, let's say, production ADO that we're currently using. So that ADO environment has been set up for the coordinators to report. But we have a number of bugs existing in that current test system at the moment. But the products available in the system are real centrally authorized products. So you should be able to run a real test scenario using a former data from a real PDF application. And that's indeed the encouraged idea.
Thank you, Christina. Next question from Elizabeth. Will the associations, example FBIA, contact us directly? I believe this relates to the reporting of the issues that you will find. We left this, let's say, flexible, so there is no a real process. We expect that the industry associations will take over and see the best approach for the process. What is important is that you submit to them your the issues that you may find, and then all management will take place from them.
So if you are, for example, a tester and you're not sure who your coordinator is, you can then, of course, contact the your industry association, or you can contact us, so we are aware which tester belongs to which industry association, so we can give you the names of the coordinators of that particular organization. But really, as a tester, your role is to do your testing. If you find something that you would consider very much of a blocking bug or a critical bug, of course, please do report that to your coordinator as soon as possible. I mean, after the start of the of the user acceptance testing, you may find some serious issues at the moment, or a complete feature missing at the moment. That is expected. As we mentioned, the system is still under development, but we wanted to ensure that we start the registration process and the access process early, so that we don't waste any time in September when you are supposed to be testing, trying to manage the access. So don't report any issues that you may find today, but of course the system is open, it's there, you can play around if you want, but please don't report yet. But once the user acceptance testing starts, you report the issues to your coordinators. Please highlight those that you feel that are really blocking, really super important issues, so your coordinator can then immediately in the beginning of the testing period report those issues to us, so that we can already start fixing, and potentially if there is a bigger issue, that could be solved during the testing period, so we don't need to pause the testing because of a major finding, for example. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Next question is, in case I do have a user admin role, I cannot create an EAF. I do need, in addition, the EAF coordinator role. Is this correct? Yes, that's correct. So administrator roles are independent from applicant-related roles. Being a user admin does not mean that you have automatically access to EAF, and for that you need an applicant-related role. For the sake of creating an EAF, you can have the coordinator role, as mentioned, or you can also have the manager role. The difference is that the applicant manager role allows you to create and access the applications created by yourself. The applicant coordinator role allows you to do the same, plus have access and manage all the other application forms for your organization created by other users. All right, moving on. Do you think about improving the requesting access to, example, adding multiple organizations into one request? In case of industry where you have different MAH, you need to raise currently different requests. Yes, that's true. That's something we would like to improve. We passed on these requests to our access management team, the ones responsible for the EMA account management. We hope that this will be included in previous releases. Not in previous, sorry, in next releases. I don't think we have yet something concrete on when this will happen, but we for sure take note and we'll take it as improvement. Dennis asks or says, thanks a lot for the session. By when will you share the slides and the recording? It should go let's say after. So once we finalize, we will wrap up and put it available, or we will let you know. And nevertheless, you already have available the guide for registration that is already published and available in the e-submissions portal. Right. Rose asks, when you register, you need to include your mobile number. No, it's not a mandatory field. So if you want to put it, yes, otherwise not needed. Yes, then for the multi-factor authentication, in case you want to use that option instead of the authentication app, then you will need to insert it there. Isabel asks, I can't access Azure as you do. Is it supposed for me to click on the Start Your Project button, or was it supposed to see another thing?
Can you take this one?
Sure, Arturo. Go
If
ahead.
you say start your project, I think you are not in the right account because we shouldn't enable you to start your own project. So it is possible that you're using your company account or any other one. The one that you should be using is the username from account management at id.ema.europa.eu. If that is still the case and you do see the start your project, please send an email and we will look into it. But if you already have access and you have been invited to the project, you should see only the existing projects, and you should not be able to create a new one.
Thank you, Arturo. I see that Frederica replied yes, just right. Sorry, I just saw that now. That was, I believe, for your issue that your role has been approved, but you could not access the EAF portal. So as mentioned, please wait around 45 minutes to allow the synchronization between the account management portal and the EAF portal. Otherwise, feel free to contact us. Christoph, would copying URL link from EAF Power App into error report duplicate exactly specific point causing a problem? Let me read again the question. Would copying URL link from EAF Power App into error report duplicate exactly specific point causing a problem?
I think he means that once you're logged in the EAF portal and you experience an issue and then you just copy the URL, would we see exactly what went wrong when we click to that link?
Exactly, yes.
I see.
Good
Not
question.
necessarily. Yeah, it's a good question, but I would say please include it if this is the case, but as well include the screenshot.
Yes,
Just
I
for
would. Yeah, just to be sure.
indeed.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem. Now we have Elizabeth. With respect to Elizabeth Imler's case above, within the FG data, the scenario of the merge of the organizations have been discussed. It seems that the EMA OMS team found a way to manage on a case-by-case the issue of the Informatica default rule about the superseding organization. All right.
Yes, so the question is, of course, please confirm. Even we heard within the focus group on data twice from Veronica that they found a solution. Yes, the first, please confirm, and the second, how to test. So thank you, Christina, for the advice that this scenario could be tested in order to understand the impact on the open application. But the question is how to test, because I understand that the DADI UAT environment pulls data out from OMS production, but it seems that there is no OMS test environment. So how could we test this scenario?
Yes, this is something that we will probably try and replicate with some of our test organizations, because indeed it could be very difficult for you to test that unless you have already been testing and you have selected products into a form and then have had this really happening to you, so that the organization has changed. So I understand it would be almost impossible for you to test that, especially using production data, because we're really pulling the production quality products there. So this is something that we will definitely test more and look at what happens and try and confirm, and also include details then into any guidance document what to do if such happens.
Thank you.
I see a raised hand. Mehdi, would you like to say something on this?
Hi, thank you for the session. It's really amazing. I just had a question. So what happened when you switch company? Like say you leave your current job and then you join another organization. It's similar to the question already been addressed. Then do you have to, because you already provided your first name and last name, that's going to be same if you go to another organization for a new role, and then do you have to create again the new EMA account with a different email address and then have to go through the same approval process?
Yes, that is correct. If you, it really depends on the offboarding of your organization, but a normal scenario would be that your organization revokes you the roles, so you might not have access anymore according to one organization to access the systems. And if that's the case, yes, the users are associated to emails. So if you switch to another company, it is possible that you will have a different email, and then you will have to create an account and repeat the process. That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Arturo. Frederica asks, by when do the coordinators need to complete the reporting in ADO? 16 September or after? So here the idea is that you report as soon as possible. More specifically, the ones that are critical. So let's say the ones that stop you or do not allow you to finalize an application form. There is no specific deadline set to my knowledge. What we have is a 2 weeks sprint after the 16th September to fix all the identified bugs, the critical ones. But of course, we would appreciate and encourage the reporting as soon as possible. so that once we receive the issues, we still need to analyze them, go through them, prioritize, see in the end whether they are critical or not, and also checking time-wise what is possible to fix. So here I would say as soon as possible.
Indeed. So please don't wait for the last day or the one day after the last day to report. And where we really appreciate the role of coordinator is that you check before you report if that issue has already been reported. So it could be that not all of your testers do the testing at the same time. So you may, of course, receive the same comment 15 times. And the reason why we wanted to take this approach of using coordinators so that we won't be overwhelmed at looking at the same comments multiple times, because the coordinators will filter and see, oh, this has already been reported by another colleague, but here's an additional screenshot, for example, that you can add into already reported issue. But as mentioned, please report as early as possible. And then when you receive further comments, just check if a similar issue has already been reported by another user, in which case you don't need to. But of course, it depends how you work and how many testers report to you. So obviously it needs to be meaningful for you, but especially anything that you would consider blocking or a critical issue, the earlier you report it, the better chance we have fixing it early, and then you can continue testing that feature further. It is, of course, possible that we can't fix all the issues before the go live, because maybe they were reported too late or there were just simply too many found. But we will aim to fix anything critical or anything blocking, and then we will add them into the backlog and fix them as the time goes.
Thank you, Christina. Next question from Beatrice. Would you please give the extent and exact area of the test to be done? Various types of variations, WS grouping. Should we test given specific products, or is it useless?
That's a very good question. So, of course, work sharing is a good scenario to test. What we really need to bear in mind that in the view of the revised scope, you can only test work sharing scenarios with multiple caps. So you cannot test for mixed cap snap scenario. That will not be possible. So even after the go live in October, the DADI form cannot be used for mixed work sharing procedures. So there you have to by default use the PDF, the interactive PDF form. But yes, work sharings that contain only caps, absolutely. Also single variations, grouped variations, groupings, as many types of scenarios as you can come up with, just including centrally authorized products. Of course, you can only test with the products that are assigned to you, so that are associated to your marketing authorization holder. So you cannot test with all products, but ideally all products that are associated to your marketing authorization holder should be available for you for your testing. So there are still quite a few different scenarios. You could also partner with a colleague potentially from let's say same global authority, but that has different authorizations, maybe for caps, where you could do a work sharing looking at contributing to another application, so that we already get a little bit of a view for work sharings as well. But bear in mind that no nationally authorized products can be included in any of the test scenarios for now. That will come in a later testing. Thank you.
Indeed. Next question. What is the XEVMPD data that will be populated in EAF web forms for this UAT testing? Is this from Article 57 production data or PMS, or only from SIMET? Christina, you want to take this one?
Yeah, I can take this one. So for this initial testing, in fact, the product data will come from PMS from SciMed. So it is really only from the EMA internal database. So we will not have any XEVMP data available at this point for this testing. So once we move to the further releases and the second external UAT, which is planned for December, January, then we will see the data, the products coming from XEVMPD. So this includes also a slight change in some centrally authorized products, because we will have data that is, let's say, merged, combining the data from SciMed and XEVMPD. But for this current testing, the data will come from PMS via SciMed, or from SciMed via PMS, should I say that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Question from Christoph. Regarding using real data for testing, I understand there is no concerns on confidentiality of data used in the process. Could this data be later reused by migrating on our request into production environment to jumpstart using DADI in organization? Good question as well.
Good question. I can take that. So with regards to using real data for testing, there is no concerns on the confidentiality, because actually one of the big parts of this UAT is really to test the confidentiality, and that you cannot see what you shouldn't see. If you suddenly have an access to everybody's application forms, then that would be a critical bug, and we would have to indeed revoke access for everybody. So something like that, and looking at how do you access and what data is accessible is a very, very important part of this. But really, there should be no issues with regards to the confidentiality aspect. Unfortunately, with regards to could this data be later reused, so it's not currently possible to kind of copy those roles from the UAT into the production. So the role of an admin will stay. If you are an admin now in the UAT, your admin role will stay, but all the other roles related to the application forms or the application form data that you enter into the form during the user acceptance testing will not be then available when we move into production. So it'll be fresh, clean system with the production quality products, with the production quality system. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Next question. Will EMA provide a how-to guide on EAF creation, or will industry need to make their own to train staff after UAT? No, we aim to have a guide for navigation, similar to the one we have now, guide for registration. It's in progress because we still need to wait for the EAF development to be finalized. It will be shared in due course. In addition, we have also planned a Q&A and webinar next week on the 26th of July, and then in August again. So this will also give you more guides on how to use the EAF. So you are encouraged, of course, to join on these sessions. They will be recorded as well and made shared afterwards.
Absolutely, but we're looking into creating a written guidance, so you will have a kind of a user guide that you can read. But we're also hoping to create videos that will explain a specific part of the system, so you don't necessarily need to go through a whole long demonstration video, but we will have short videos showing how to do specific parts. So as Jean mentioned, we have not been able to do that yet because we have quite major change that has actually just been implemented in the portal, I believe this morning or early hours of this morning, where you can see a quite new and different look. So you saw that when Joao showed you the how to request or create a form. So there is now a completely new look and feel. Now that we have that implemented, we can start taking screenshots for the guidance, and so we will also be able to start creating little videos of different parts of the form. But that should be hopefully ready at least in a draft form when we start the UAT, so you will know how to do it. But definitely by the time of the go live, user guidance will be available. Of course, in the larger organizations, because depending on how do you use the form, it's now process will be slightly different because of the access to the portal. You can't simply just email the application form to a colleague like you would have done in the past. You may also wish to have some kind of train the trainer approach in within your organization on kind of more of the procedural or kind of practical aspects on how to fill in the form, but really the using the portal guidance will be provided by the EMA. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Next question from Alessio. Should an organization request test or coordinator role for a person via email? If I understand correctly the question, no, the requests are not made via email. They need to go via the EMA account management portal. So each organization should make sure that they have at least one user administrator, and then all the applicant roles, including the coordinator one, needs to be submitted by the user and then approved by the admin role.
If I may complete, if we are referring to the test coordinator, the one accessing Azure DevOps, if you want to request a test coordinator role, you first need to have been appointed by your trade association. So there is a list that has already been provided to us. If you still want to participate as a test coordinator, that might be possible depending on your trade association. Contact them. Some of them are already a closed list. Some might be open to admit a bit more, and then they will submit the request back to us, and we will add it to Azure DevOps. But in principle, we already have a list. There might be a possibility for adding a few more. And I think there is a few that are directly mentioned. So I see that for Azure, you have to enter a username and the domain. So indeed, the username that you need to do in order to access Azure DevOps is the one from the account management. So for the case of Isabel Afonso, that could maybe be Afonso_I or I1 or I2 or something like that. Please check it in the account management portal. And at id.ema.europa.eu. So just I will put it in the chat, username at id.ema.europa.eu. And the password should be the same as in the account management portal. Also worth mentioning, you can only access Azure DevOps if you are already a test coordinator, which is a list of around 20 users. But if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us in the EAF testing email, eaf-testing@ema.europa.eu. Okay, so the next question is, thank you for your previous alternative presentation, kindly suggesting that the resolution is also followed with the EMA industry OMS key user group.
Sure.
Okay, then the next question is, my expectation for a UAT is that all testers follow the same test script, whereas what I'm hearing, that testers are free to choose what they want to test, provided the organization products. So both things. We will provide not test scripts as in very granular detailed on how to do it. However, we will provide test suggestions, scenarios that we would like to have covered. But of course, free testing adjusted to real scenarios of your own organization are encouraged. So we have multiple different scopes and possibilities and permutations. So on top of the checklist that we will provide, we strongly encourage that you test real case scenarios of your own organization. This way we will be able to cover as much as possible.
Indeed, and where you say, Andrew, that confirm that the system works as expected and not so much looking for bugs. Absolutely. So what we would like you to test is that you can fill in your application as you would expect it to do it in production, like you do it today using the PDF. But for us to give detailed, kind of using the same test script, we already have system testing. So we feel that the value of following a strict test script would be very, very limited. And we would not cater for all the scenarios, because even from a centralized procedure point of view, when I'm looking at application forms that we receive, there are so many different scenarios that we could never, it would not make sense to write test scripts and for everyone to follow the same test script. So the best test script for you is to really take a PDF that you have submitted to EMA or are intending to submit to EMA and try and fill it in the portal. So that would really be the most realistic test script, and to confirm that it works as expected. And hopefully there are no bugs or issues. That would be the aim of the testing. Thank you.
Right. I believe we have one more question. Are the next webinar registration links on EMA website?
Yes, it should be in the events page, and you can also find the webinar registration links for the webinar on the 26th of July, which is next Tuesday, and the one on the 2nd of September. You can also find those from the eSubmissions website on the DADI page.
Thank you. Christoph asks, this is out of scope of the meeting, but would there be an option to drop submission of PDF forms completely in favor of XML files? Thank you.
Yes, that's a good question. Indeed, a little bit out of scope here, but this is something that we have covered in our previous Q&A sessions and webinars about DADI. There is very much of an expectation that in future you will be able to submit just the XML and not filling in the PDF. Unfortunately, at this point, we will initially start with filling in the user interface and generating a PDF that will be included in your ECTD submission. So the pure XML approach is not possible as of yet, but hopefully in future this will be indeed implemented.
Thank you.
All right, next question. When shall we begin testing the application forms on the portal? So that is during the official UAT period, so from the 5th to 16th of September. What we ask to focus right now is on the access management part, so that you make sure that your account is created, active, and the roles are requested and approved before the beginning of the UAT.
Indeed. So you will have access, but testing more now will have limited value because, as I mentioned, we have bugs in the system that may frustrate you. You're, of course, welcome play around so you get familiar with the system, which will then eventually help you with testing. So you don't need to, I mean, if you are interested, of course, you can go there, but bear in mind that new features will be implemented. Bugs will be fixed, so the behavior of the system will change. So, for example, as a practical examples, the medical devices section is not yet implemented in the portal, so you will not find the section 4D of the application form in the portal at all yet. Also, there will be quite significant changes implemented into the section, what is currently section 3, the present and proposed section in the form. So at the moment, the implementation is a little bit cumbersome to fill in. So we have come up with the improvement story, which has just been developed and designed and approved, which will be implemented before the UAT starts. But that part, for example, will change quite significantly. But there may be value to just having a look in there, little sandbox feeling how it is. Of course, if you see something is, you have early comments, we don't of course encourage you to send us a lot of early comments, but please, if you see something that you think it's really not very good at all, we don't mind receiving that, but we won't take those as the official UAT feedback at all. But we have what we call an alpha testing ongoing, so we have a number of industry users that have already been testing the system for quite a while. And we have been getting quite a useful feedback from them. So of course there is value to look around, but bear in mind changes will come.
Thank you, Christina. We have one question from Beatrice. Should each organization have an administrator? Will this administrator have to manage the access to EAF portal in production on a long-term basis, or is it only access to testers during UAT in September? So the first question is yes, each organization should have at least one administrator. This person will then do the access management or be responsible to do the access management for his or her organization. Will the administration have to manage the access in production on a long-term basis? Yes. So that's what is expected. So each administrator of a given organization has the flexibility to manage the accesses on their own without, let's say, EMA intervention. The EMA only approves or rejects the administrators of each organization. And for that, the proof of authority is requested.
But of course,
oh, sorry.
It could be just you could just be an admin for the UAT and then revoke your admin access. It's not for life. You don't have to be an administrator forever. So of course that could be. It really depends on your organization and how you want to manage that. Sorry, Arturo, please.
That's exactly what I wanted to add. Yes. It is a production role. You will have access to approve both UAT and production. But if that is not what you want, you can of course revoke the role as in the same account management portal. I believe there are not any more questions, are they?
Don't think so. If any of you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. You have the email address where you registered, so you can contact us through that email address. Or of course, if you have questions that are relevant to coordinators, if you are in a tester role, you can have a discussion with your coordinators or your industry association, and always feel free to contact us as well.
Thank you very much for participating in this session. And again, if you have any other question, feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.
Thank you so much also from my side.
Thank you. And we'll also reach out to you as in sending the recording of this session. So we will send that to all who were invited to this session, including the presentation that was shown by my colleagues. Thank you.